everyone. Today we are here with Jason Brock, owner and head instructor of Gracie Jiu Jitsu in downtown Decatur. Thanks for being here, Jason.
My pleasure.
So I want to just start off with some questions for folks who don't know. If we can you can maybe educate everyone a little bit on that particular martial art that you lead and teach, Jiu Jitsu, and then can you just share the origins and what the Gracie element of the name is?
Absolutely. So I've been doing martial arts for over 30 years. I've done Kempo, Judo, Aikido, karate, Taekwondo, boxing, wrestling. So I've done a lot of martial arts. Gracie Jiu Jitsu, what differentiates Jiu Jitsu is the grappling art. So it's not requiring, there are strikes, but the reality is with strike, size matters. So when the samurai was trying to fight on the battlefield, and if they used karate to kick someone in armor, it wasn't very successful. Imagine a knight walking around, you punch a knight. It's kind of difficult. So jiu-jitsu was modified to win on the battlefield via joint locks, joint manipulation, strangulations to win the fight. So, and then when it was outlawed, when Imperial Japan took over, I was no longer allowed to teach jiu-jitsu. It was illegal. So because they're trying to get rid of the samurai. So then Kato came out and said, hey, you know what? I'm not doing jiu-jitsu, I'm doing judo, which basically loosely translation is gentle way versus gentle art. So he took away a lot of the ground fighting and some of the violence in jiu-jitsu from the self-defense standpoint and turned it into more of a sport. And it was a beautiful sport, became an Olympic event. It's been incredible forever since the 1800s. And then the Gracies in 1925, Helio Gracie and his brother Carlos, they realized they couldn't do the Japanese or traditional style jiu-jitsu because they were smaller guys. So they modified the art again. And then you have Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, which the basic concept is simple. The smaller person can have a fighting chance against a larger person using technique over brute strength. And there you go.
Is there, and correct me if I'm wrong, if there's the sort of water art versus like different natural element related to the
yeah, so most hard arts like striking arts, like I boxed for 13 years. And the thing about boxing, I taught my wife how to box. But if you want to use boxing against an adversary who's simply trying to hurt you, trying to rob you, you have to be violent. You have to throw punches, you have to break orbital bones. And especially with things like law enforcement, that's really bad for body cameras. So it's just not the best way to fight fire with fire. You want to fight fire with water. So jiu-jitsu is a gentle art. We're using a self-defense system. So we use the person's aggression, their violence, their size against them to subdue them. And then we can control the situation and submit them if we need to, or just make them realize that they ticked off the wrong young lady and they should be nice now.
Gotcha. So how did you mentioned when you got started. So what kind of got you into jiu-jitsu?
UFC.
Why that? Huh?
Like most pugilists, I saw the UFC in the 90s and I thought I was a tough guy. And I was like, oh my God, this jiu-jitsu is crazy. This tiny little Brazilian guy is beating up all these boxers and wrestlers. There's no way this can be real. So I was working at a restaurant in Houston, in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, called Houston's. And one of the cooks trained jiu-jitsu. So we started talking smack, which martial art was better, boxing and wrestling versus jiu-jitsu. And he invited me very lovingly to try out the art. And I went to their academy, quickly realized that I was humbled and wowed by the effectiveness of the art. So, and that was traditional jiu-jitsu, which is more like judo. So I did that for several years. And then 9 years ago, I started training in Gracie Jiu Jitsu, which I found traditional jiu-jitsu was amazing, but it still required strength, power, and athleticism, whereas Gracie Jiu Jitsu did not, if you treat it as a self-defense.
Yeah, that's great. So when did you open your Gracie Jiu Jitsu? And I just want to kind of get a sense, just one thing I do like to ask people, we've obviously been through a pandemic, all right, and or still maybe will be, how would you say, after you kind of tell me about y'all's opening up how did you survive the pandemic, and is there anything you imagine now going forward with your business, how you would survive, do it differently? What do you think?
So the pandemic was a challenge. We have a bunch of philosophies and principles that guide our art in jiu-jitsu. And one of the principles my wife has tattooed on the instep of her foot. It's called comfort in chaos. And a big part of jiu-jitsu is finding comfort when things go crazy. And that could be with a kid getting ready to take an exam at school, That could be you've got a big corporate report to do in corporate America, or when a large man is on top of you crushing you, right? So we opened in March 2019, and it just opened up like gangbusters. We went from 0 to 150 students in a year. It was an amazing growth strategy. It was incredible. People in Decatur were just flocking. It was really cool because we opened up Gracie Jiu Jitsu Decatur just as like a hobby, like a passion project. I owned restaurants. So it wasn't meant to be a business to make money. It was meant to be, hey, we'll teach jiu-jitsu, self-defense, we'll have fun, we'll own our own school, it'd be super cool. And then I left corporate America in February 2020, and this thing called the coronavirus happened.
What timing? Oh my God.
Well, it was fortuitous in one regard. I sold and got out of restaurants, and it was arduous in another that my revenue stream went away. And yeah, we had to close 2 weeks later. We closed March 17th, 2020. We were closed for 3 months. During that time, we did jiu-jitsu via Zoom. So one really big thing that we gained, to your question, was how to have comfort in chaos. So we modified our business model. So one big thing we did was no touch training. You know, you said your son did Aikido. A lot of Aikido and karate can be like a parry. You know, you can do a lot of things on your own, slow movements. Jiu-jitsu traditionally is an art where you're like, oh my gosh, I have to have a partner. Well, what if your partner is scared of getting a virus that they don't know how deadly it could be? So we started doing a lot of solo drills. We did 100% Zoom for several months, and students got better without having a partner. Now, it's not the same. Let's not be naive. I found over doing it for 6 months that I could teach about 80% of a move via Zoom. But the other 20%, you would need to have some partner at some point. Even if it was just, hey, spouse, come here, husband. I just learned this move on Zoom. Let me try it on you. Fill this waiver out first. But we found that was helpful. And we opened up 3 months after coronavirus first came out. And then we did a lot of solo drills on the mat, which was even better. Because now you could do a solo drill by yourself, but an instructor could help improve your posture to help you do the move more accurately. And then starting in 2021, we started relaxing some of our criteria. We started having more contact, and now we are fully open. We encourage masks. If you want to wear them, that's great. We highly encourage vaccination, and now we are operating like we were before.
That's fantastic. Great for you guys. What a timeline story you'll always have to tell.
Yeah, it's exciting. Open a business, have a pandemic happen. Who knew?
I'll
It's
show
all
you
good.
how, and I'll show you how.
Adversity makes you stronger. Adversity makes you stronger. So it's all good.
That's right. So of course you're a small business owner, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me what you really enjoy now, just being that. And what do you feel like is, you know, if we weren't just taking your pandemic out of it, right? Like, what do you really enjoy about it? What are some of the bigger challenges to this, as just in general, being a small business owner, right?
Absolutely. What I enjoy is just helping people. So whether I was a sales leader for Verizon or owning restaurants, you're still serving people, whether you're serving them sushi, a wireless plan, or self-defense, or a mindset that you can live. So that's the big part, is that hasn't changed much. Corporate America versus small business, that helping people's always been there. The big benefit is less bureaucracy. You know, spending most of my life in corporate America, it's a lot of bureaucracy. It's hard to get things done because there's so many rungs to go through and so many rings to kiss and so many appeasing to be done. Whereas owning a small business, you're like, what does my consumer want? What can I provide? Yes, I can do that. Let's go. So it's a much more streamlined process with the consumer to say, what are you all looking for? This is what you're looking for, self-defense. We got you. And then it's also easier to have those crucial conversations. Like, I have some students show up like, hey, I want to go on a tournament in jiu-jitsu in a month. I'm like, well, then don't train here. We focus on self-defense jiu-jitsu, the jiu-jitsu that would help you in a street fight, that could give you a better mindset. If you're looking to go into a tournament, there are several great jiu-jitsu schools, even in Decatur, for you to train at. But it allows me to be true to who I am. Whereas I found in corporate America, we would try to appease everybody and then appease no one. So being a small business owner, it's much easier to keep the pulse of your consumer and go, here's what you want, here's what I can offer. Yes, we got you. So that to me is the biggest difference of being a small business owner versus the bureaucratic spinning of wheels in corporate America.
Yeah. Well, while you're there steering your own ship, where do you see things growing and changing over the next 5 years for your business?
Just continued growth. The big thing is to have more people. it's great to have a vision of what you want to cast, but really what made our academy successful is we opened with about 30 students that were just like the core that created the culture of who we wanted to be. We wanted to be a safe, chill, fun environment, mutually inclusive. You'll have a retired hip hop star next to a Decatur police officer doing jiu-jitsu. You'll have every gender, every sexual identity, every religion on the mat, and no one cares. In today's society, everything is you're Republican, you're Democrat, you're this gender, you're that. Everything has to be tribal. Whereas jiu-jitsu, it's like, this is where we're at practicing our art. We're having fun and don't really care what religion or God you pray to or what you do for a living. So with that, people want that. So when we closed, we lost 55% of our students. That was painful, but now we're bigger than ever. We have over 240 students now, and I see nothing but growth in the future. We've learned that even through a pandemic, jiu-jitsu is needed. Not just the self-defense mindset, that's cool, but what students really care for and what really speaks to students is the social, the physical, and the mental benefits of jiu-jitsu, that connection that you can't find like we're doing right now. It's great that you and I are connecting via Zoom. It's awesome, but there's nothing like the connection that you can get face-to-face with somebody. And that's how humans are built to connect. And as we get more disconnected through connections digitally, jiu-jitsu has a very important place in the world.
Well, I imagine in a pandemic, a lot of people dealing with a sense of resilience, and feeling self-reliant, and that would kind of give some empowerment there, I would think.
Very true. You're 100% correct.
To practice that. That's great. Well, I like to ask people this question. I just want to know, what should people know about you that they may otherwise have no idea unless they maybe showed up on the mat, or just you have impressions and perceptions when they don't know a business until they become intimately involved in the business. So what would you say was that thing that people might not know without having the experience of being there?
We're not a bunch of crazy troglodytes trying to kill each other. So when I tried to open this academy back in March 2019, 4 months prior, we were like looking at different lease options, like at Toko Hills and a few other areas in Decatur. And people are like, we don't want jiu-jitsu. We don't want a bunch of tough guys with funny looking ears. See, my ears look great. They're fabulous ears. Because most people think of jiu-jitsu as the sport, which is an amazing sport. It's so much fun. We at Gracie University, we're part of an affiliation based in Torrance, California. There's 210 certified training centers in the world. We just choose to focus on the self-defense aspect of jiu-jitsu. So what that allows us to do is you don't have to fight to learn how to fight. So we create a safe, fun, chill environment where it's inclusive for all. Whereas a lot of jiu-jitsu schools, or even boxing, I used to box forever, they focus on the 5%. Like the elite, the high level athletes, the high level competition, the very aggressive machismo cats. And then everyone else is just chump. They're just like being fed to the alphas. That's not Gracie Jiu Jitsu. It's not the way it's meant to be taught. It's not meant to be taught that way. But whenever you create a sport, you're looking to win. And if your winning is decided by that, cool, I got a cool medal, then you're going to start having that environment where it's a fight every day. That's not who we want to be. I had a black belt in jiu-jitsu show up here 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, why do you want to train here? There's so many great schools, high level competition schools. Why do you want to go to Gracie Decatur? And he's like, I hear you guys focus on learning technique and not trying to kill each other every single day. I was like, yeah, we like to kill each other sometimes too. We like a good sweat. But yes, when we spar or when we do grapple in the higher levels, the top 2 rules are don't get hurt, don't hurt others. And the third rule is to learn and have fun. Because if all you're doing is trying to see who's the top dog, that's cute. I hope that makes your ego feel better, but it wouldn't help you in a street situation as much. And most people, when they train that way, they quit in a few months. They're like, my work schedule changed and I can't make it anymore. And that's why a lot of jiu-jitsu schools have, 50 to 100 students, whereas we're able to cater so many students because there's more benefits to jiu-jitsu than just beating each other up. And people will never see the beauty of jiu-jitsu if they only see that violent part they see, but jiu-jitsu tournaments and watching the UFC. So give it a shot, realize there's a place in jiu-jitsu for everybody. If you want to sit there and be an animal and beat people up, there's a place for that. That's just not what we choose to focus on.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that and just sort of giving people a little more insight into otherwise, what is jujitsu and what is happening down there in Decatur?
Well, and it gives different programs. Like we have program for women only because some women aren't comfortable at all having men touch them because of past experiences or trauma they've endured. So that's why we have a program for women only. My wife, Coach Alora, and one of my instructors, Coach Nadia, lead that one. Us guys show up and just get beat up. They just throw us around like rag dolls, and they lead that program. We have kids only program for both 3 different groups of kids: little kids, older kids with no experience, older kids with experience. And then we have combatives, which is for everybody. That's kind of like co-ed, mutually inclusive, for what it would be for street self-defense for adults. And then we have the crazy stuff. That's the master cycle. That's the jujitsu versus jitsu. That's the smallest percentage of our group.
That's awesome. Well, everybody, this is Jason Brock, owner, head instructor at Gracie Jiu Jitsu in downtown Decatur. Check them out, by the way, at graciedecatur.com. Thank you, Jason, for joining us. Really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Just really good luck with your business. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you. You too.